Welcome all. My name is Richard Rambarran. Of course, for those of you who may not know me, I'm an economist by profession. I'm given the task, of course, here today by Georgetown Capital to chat a bit with you on the petroleum sector, the local content, and what particularly has been happening in the Guyanese context. So it's no small secret at this point that Guyana has one of the most promising emerging markets within the global context. This is even taken into consideration the pandemic. Guyana has been recording mammoth numbers as it relates to growth and growth figures over the past few years. And this is not anticipated to decline at any point in the near future. And a lot of this and a lot of the attention has been driven by the petroleum sector. Now, Guyana, of course, has been seen as being this blessing, if you will, within this Caribbean region, as it's particularly oriented to becoming the regional powerhouse as it relates to energy and the entire energy construct and transition, and that discussion that has been happening globally. But in Guyana, with more than 10.5 billion barrels of proven reserves, and that's just on the oil side of it, one can anticipate that what is happening within the local economy will continue to have positive impacts on the entire economy. But particularly, how is this relevant for you as an investor, or for you as someone looking on in Guyana, or someone who is even in Guyana and you want to understand what it is that is happening? One might think that there are these great opportunities that are spoken about, but it is never pertinent to an individual who may not have had a tremendous amount of capital, who may not have had a tremendous amount of experience in the oil and gas sector. But I'd want to say, don't fear, or fear not, simply because when one looks at the nature of what is happening, you are not only covering by and large the petroleum sector, but all of the other sectors that grow concomitantly with the petroleum sector. So when one thinks about it, if you are in tourism and hospitality, you stand to benefit from the developments in the petroleum sector. If you are in transport, you stand to benefit from the petroleum sector development. If you are in logistics, you stand to benefit. But one must keep in mind that irrespective of the fact that the resources that are coming out of the ground belongs to Guyanese, we operate fundamentally in a free market society, a free market economy, and we are integrated into the global platform. Thus, with the recognition of that, and with the recognition of the fact that the petroleum resources are really the national patrimony and belong to the Guyanese people, the private sector in Guyana, along with the government of Guyana, had been working for some time on the development of a particular instrument that is extraordinarily important for driving growth. That instrument is local content. And local content, now in its form of being a legislation in Guyana in December 2021, assented to by His Excellency the President, provides a legislative instrument and a platform and a framework by which locals can benefit from the oil and gas sector and all of the other sectors that support the oil and gas sector. What essentially is local content? Local content at face value, one can say that it refers to the value or the quantum of value that remains within the local economy throughout the oil and gas value chain. But let's take it even a step further. When one speaks about a local, who are we speaking about? We're essentially talking about a Guyanese citizen. When one speaks about a local company, who are we speaking about? Previously, or under the regime that governed prior to oil and gas, prior to the local content legislation in particular, Chapter 8901 of the Laws of Guyana, the Companies Act, would have defined a local company as any company that is incorporated within Guyana and under Guyanese law. However, the local content legislation has now changed that, and essentially the local content legislation identifies that the Guyanese company is one that is 51% owned by Guyanese citizens or a Guyanese citizen, 90% of the workforce to be occupied by Guyanese citizens, and 75% of senior management to be Guyanese. This is extraordinarily important because what this does is that it sets you up as a Guyanese to say, really, here are the opportunities for me to be employed, for me to be a partner, for me to even enter into senior management in roles that perhaps previously would not have been available readily to Guyanese. Local content legislation, particularly in the first schedule, describes that there are 40 sectors, and more particularly subsectors, where procurement being done by the oil and gas companies, as well as their tier 1 contractors or their prime contractors that come under them, they have to procure a particular percentage from these enterprises that are in those subsectors that are qualified as Guyanese companies. That in itself, when one thinks about it, lends itself to a tremendous amount of opportunity for anyone who is seeking to invest, anyone who is seeking to partner, anyone who is seeking to understand where it is that you ought to develop your skill sets. So when one looks at that first schedule of the Local Content Act 2021, just go all the way to the back of the legislation and you'll see it being listed there. Those 40 areas provide tremendous signals and a major impetus for Guyanese who are looking to do the activities that I would have mentioned. It must be noted, however, that whilst there is a birthright, if you will, for Guyanese to their natural patrimony, and whilst there is an instrument called local content in place, someone should not run away with the idea that they are, by and large, only or authorized to obtain this natural resource and obtain the benefits accruing from this natural resource without strong competition, without developing themselves to an international level, and really without ensuring that you are putting the best foot forward or the best that you can do. I want to say that the petroleum sector, the development of the local content legislation, and everything that is happening in Guyana right now as it relates to the policy environment and the drive towards private sector growth and private sector development lends itself readily to the creation of a new economy, one which I, as an economist, someone involved in the private sector, and as someone passionate about Guyana and Guyana's development, I'm very happy to see and elated to be a part of. Thank you.